Dude, you died?
Yeah, but I've got unfinished business here.
Oh, couldn't you use another stall?
My ghost isn't going anywhere, not until I pass on my duty to another. And that would be you.
Me? No. You must have it wrong.
Oh, it's you, all right. I've been holding back the witch's curse for years. But now I'm dead. It has to be you.
Hello humans! Welcome to the studio and welcome to this very special episode where we are going to show you how we made the scene you just watched. We were commissioned by LAIKA to create it as part of the 10th anniversary celebration of their gorgeous movie ParaNorman. A spooky tale of a young boy who sees dead people who is tasked with saving his town from a ghostly curse. It features some of the most beautiful sets, photography and animation ever committed to film. It's just had a 4K restoration and will be playing in theatres throughout the Halloween season. So when LAIKA approached us to be involved in this project, we of course went immediately back to the source material to see if there was a scene that particularly stood out as something we'd love to make for real. And for me, there was only one. The scene sees our young hero retreat to the school bathroom for a moment's peace, only to be visited by his recently deceased uncle, who after a series of pretty extreme paranormal happenings, emerges from the toilet for a chat. So when we had our first meeting with the folks at LAIKA, they presented us with a selection of scenes that they thought might be good to recreate. But the bathroom scene wasn't in there. It turned out because they couldn't actually imagine how anybody could pull such a scene off. Usually when a studio or client comes to us to make something for them, there's only a script, perhaps storyboards, describing the scene, and we have to use our imaginations to flesh that out and figure out how to do it. But in this case, we're working to the most accurate previs ever, namely an Oscar-nominated feature animation. And so we knew exactly what we had to do. But having to recreate something so specific is both a benefit and a curse. The characters' proportions and all the production design are far from anything you find in the real world. Also, in this case, the audience has seen the previs, so we've really got to nail it. So while JP, Pete and I will be playing the human characters just because we thought it'd be funny, arguably the biggest character in this scene is the set. We've got rippling tiles, a bulging floor and walls, as well as a rattling toilet seat that opens up by itself, a rattling toilet paper dispenser, which also has to fire across the set, water gags, air cannons, flying toilet paper, and an entire bathroom set we don't have the time or money to build. So I start sketching out designs for the set, taking into account all the gags we've got to incorporate. We're going to need a raised stage because of the floor and water gags, and in order to securely fix our floating elasticated walls, we're going to need a rock-solid scaffold surrounding at least 3 sides. We're also going to need a hinged door for the shot where Norman enters the cubicle. As we get deeper into our shot-by-shot investigation, we start to notice all sorts of interesting quirks. For example, from one shot to another, the angle of the walls vary hugely, from almost perpendicular to wildly opened out. So they're going to need hidden hinges at the rear wall end and movable supports at the front. Bearing in mind they're going to be forcibly pushed from behind. Once I've got all the measurements figured out, it's time to start building and testing. Using me as our scale reference, we sketch out where everything needs to be on the rear wall. By this point, we'd taken delivery of a huge 2-meter wide roll of sheet latex, and so we strap it across a small frame to test its strength and elasticity. Oh yeah, that's going to work real nice.
Give me a little kiss.
Okay, harness is next. In the scene, Norman climbs up the toilet onto the cistern with his back to the wall very quickly. I think we're still gonna speed it up when we do it, because the shot in the animated scene, it definitely looks like it's been sped up. Everything's just that little bit more intense. But still, I still need to climb up a toilet seat onto a cistern with my back to the wall quite quickly. And every surface around me is going to be elastic at this point. So if I reach out an arm or put my foot on the floor, it's going to go through. So really what we need is a harness to support me that's going to reach up into the scaff, taking my weight, so I can just do that more easily, but also if I slip, it will take my weight.
The harness,
yeah,
and it's a fun one, is that's really good and snug up into the edges.
All up in the groin. Yeah, okay.
Because if they are loose, and some of your equipment gets...
Yeah, I'm with you, I'm with you.
Yep,
yep. Come on, Ted, put your back into it. It's going to spin a little bit. Oh God, I tell you what, let's go down. That's really cutting off the circulation. Oh God. Okay, good. Well, that works. Right, back to the rear wall. So this is the central set flat that we're going to use as the rear wall on the bathroom. As you can see, we've mapped out where our cistern and toilet are going to be, and then we've drawn out and cut these kind of trenches or gullies, which is where all of the bulges happen throughout the scene. The idea is we reinforce behind this on the set flat with wood so that it's not wobbling around. Then we take the ply off, we stretch latex over it, then we stretch white lycra over it, which gives us a sort of white, sort of grouty coloured background. And then we put this back on top. Once that's all fixed, then we start applying all of our tiles. So what we're doing is fixing it all around either side of every gully so that when we poke it, we get a nice isolated sort of ripple or wave. So speaking of tiles, this is what we're using. So this is white foam board. So we're going to tack these on once this is all prepped, and then we draw our wonky tile lines. Once we've got all of those drawn, we then take them off, cut them all out, and then we're going to have to do a slight little sand job to every single tile in order to get them looking like tiles and not like pieces of cut foam board. It's a lot and it's time-consuming work, but ultimately you just have to tell yourself, break it down, do it in stages. Yes, it's a lot of work, but don't think about it as one whole. Think about it as little jobs, and you tick off those jobs, and by the time you get to it, it's going to look so dope, and all of that time and that effort, it's going to be worth it when you get all of those details nailed. Yeah.
Humans, have you liked? Have you subscribed? Have you commented on how freaking cool this is? Well, get on with it.
With our sizes now locked, I can start building the cistern that I'm going to be climbing up. This will be fixed to the wall with heavy timber to support my weight, with an outer shell made from ply. Yes, that's me bending the curved side panels with a steam iron. Whatever works, right? So I've sort of rounded off all of our edges with a belt sander, then go in with the block just to smooth it off. So where I'm at the moment is I'm filling. I'm using 2-part wood filler to do this, which is one of those substances that has a really strong, slightly noxious smell to it, which is kind of, you know, you initially kind of go, oh my God, and then you're like, oh my God. And then you kind of want a little bit, it's like petrol or hot tarmac or something like that. It's one of those good, bad smells. You know what I'm saying. This is the first stage where you start to make one material look like another. So this is really fun. You start kind of filling in all of those gaps, all the screw holes, any little dings. Obviously this is ply, so it's layered, so you get little gaps of wood and stuff like that. Once you start covering all of those gaps and those wooden effects, you know, things that are telltale signs of it being wood, it starts to look like, once you get a paint job on here, it's going to be enamel. I'll tell you what, I'll just stand that up. Got the lid. There we go. And although I have made it so that this is a little bit higher, it's because it's supposed to be on the wonk, it's not quite enough, so I might actually just put something under there. Everything's wonky in this film. It's that nice thing, like, I know LAIKA are really kind of keen for us to kind of DIY all of this stuff as we do on the channel. And it's funny, it's a very necessary approach because everything in the film is really handmade. There is not one straight line in the whole film. And everything looks very handmade intentionally. What that means is we can't buy anything to make this scene, we have to make it all. But this is the funny part though, is although everything is wonky, it's all perfectly finished. So It's nice that I don't have to be perfect with all of my lines and things, but the way it's finished needs to be. Back to our stretchy walls. So we fixed the sheet latex to our frames. Great. But they need to be red. Well, actually the walls are a crazy mixture of colours. There's greys, yellows, reds, and even metal where the paint has worn off. So we need a paint that's going to stretch with the latex. We try a few tests and find a mixture of liquid latex and emulsion gives us the coverage and stretchiness we need. I get the base coat on while Pat and John make headway on the floor. As with the back wall, the floor is going to be made up of 3 set flats, bolted together with the central flat being cut and reinforced to allow someone to press up from below to cause the floor to ripple and bulge as required. Meanwhile, JP's working on the floor tiles. As you don't really see the tiles lift from the grout on the floor bulges, we opt to use large sheets of EVA foam, often used for cosplay, stuck on top of sheet latex, which we can then paint and cut grout lines out of with scalpel or Stanley blades. We ended up making our own bespoke cutting tools with 2 blades side by side to cut perfect little trenches much faster. As we near the shoot date, it's time to install the scaffold stage. We're all working together to figure out exactly where everything needs to be. This is a supporting structure which needs to be high enough for someone to puppeteer the floor, deep enough to accommodate the walls, and reinforced in the right places to take weight. Filmmaking is all about collaboration, and with a scene as complicated as this, there's a good chunk of time spent discussing the challenges at hand and figuring out solutions together. The best filmmakers knowingly surround themselves with people who know more than they do. They leave their ego at the door and listen to the pros around them. That's how you make great work. So the floor's in. I get excited at the fact that we've got a raised stage with gaps in the floor and have a small Empire moment.
Give me a Yoda! Give me a Yoda! Who like one?
While all this is going on, we brought in the wonderful Caris to paint both the hard and elastic versions of our side walls. Caris is what's known as a scenic artist, and for me, they are amongst the real magicians of the film industry. They can pretty much make anything look like anything with paint. I believe she'd spent the previous few weeks before this making foam look like stone walls for a movie. Next, we install the back wall, and it's time to start tiling. We cut our tile sheets into sections wherever there's a gully. We then stick the lengths of individual tiles onto separate lengths of LAIKA so there's flex in between them. Right, onto the floor. We've got our trench cut out in such a way that will allow us to create 2 separate ripples as in the first tracking shot and 1 big wave as in the second. We cover the area in sheet latex, then lay our painted foam sheets over the top and begin the arduous task of cutting all the grout lines. But we use our homemade double blade knives to speed things up. Meanwhile, we've also been making a lightweight foam paper dispenser. Lightweight because it's not just sitting on a solid wall, it's also going to be sitting on the latex wall, and we don't want it to end up pulling the wall out of shape, or even worse, tearing it. As we put the finishing touches on all the props and get the paint jobs done on the set, it really starts to feel like it's coming together.
Oh, it's warm! It's warm! Fresh out of the oven. Local businesses helping each other out. That's what it's all about. Isn't that beautiful? Gorgeous. Yeah. And then we're going to knock that right back, dirty it up. By God, it'll be beautiful. There it is.
So it's the day before the first shoot day, and as the crew begins setting up in the studio, I go into hair and makeup for a camera test. But first...
This is what suffering looks like when you have no real problems. Oh man. It's weird, isn't it? See what I do? See what I do for my art? I feel like Harrison Ford in The Fugitive or something. Yeah, but not really.
It's just weird. Let's just call it what it is.
I've just never seen you without your goatee before.
I know.
really great. It's doing great.
It's fine, it's fine.
We've had this gorgeous wig made by the wonderful Amaury Castagnier, which Stephanie applies and styles while Naomi works on makeup.
So we're not sure if we're going to do the eyebrows or not. Amaury has made them, because obviously he has very heavy eyebrows in the film, but you know, we're trying to find a kind of a balance of sort of natural look and, you know, achieving the look of the characters. I'm less like, ah! I mean, obviously it's weird. It's a bit of a kind of, you know, Groucho Marx, Boris Karloff kind of vibe, but that's okay. Yeah,
Like,
dig it.
Even with the brows, you know.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm all about it. Like, I think the brows are great. It's just like I say, we're making a look, aren't we?
That's it. Exactly. Fantastic.
We're at a razor head height right now, right? So we are going to trim it down a little bit. Amaury specifically kind of sent the wig with more length than it needed, but this is pretty. I mean, this is volume like I could only dream of. See how we're using my hair to kind of blend the two together. Oh, it just looks amazing, Steph.
It's all coming together. In the next episode, we're going to show you how we went about shooting on the set, along with JP's grand entrance as Uncle Prendergast, some fun water tank tricks to create his ghostly aura, how we used a miniature set to pull off the opening shot, and all the invisible VFX that went into completing the sequence.
Whew, it's a lot, right? I hope you've enjoyed this little breakdown of our process and don't feel too cheated that we haven't given you absolutely everything in one hit. But I'd imagine at this point you're feeling as tired as I am and could do with a little break. So stay tuned for the next one where we get into the nitty-gritty of how we shot and compiled this beautiful thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave us a comment, and if you feel so inclined, go and support us on Patreon so that we can keep sharing. Much love.